Chuck.
All right. Great weekend of football in the Big 12. And it was, with a bye week, I got to sit on the back porch and watch a lot of football. And just some really starting with Thursday night with Baylor and West Virginia, and then, flip back and forth between all the games. I think just shows what kind of conference we're in, that there's no off days, and a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be a fun second half of the season. Definitely. Guys that are going to be decisions on Saturday, so we'll just work through with Drew. Some of them practiced yesterday, but just kind of going through. We want to make sure they're 100%. Miles Price, J.J. Sparkman, Tyler, Shuck, and then Cameron Valdez. It's good to see Tyler throw. He was back in shoulder pads today. He's got a new shoulder pad, and he looked really good. He's just throwing with Drew. He'll practice tomorrow, and then we'll see if he's going to be released. If he's released, then you'll see all three quarterbacks. If not, then you'll see both quarterbacks on Saturday. Team we're playing, Neil Brown, really like Neil a lot. Got to know him whenever he was here. He was the guy that came through and recruited Cedar Hill. Just a great guy, really, really good football coach. They won a huge game Thursday. Their guys played really well. I thought their two big receivers played well, and they're really dangerous. We're going to have to do a good job with 3 and 0. Their running backs, they've got some really tough running backs, and the quarterback threw the ball well on Thursday against a really good defense, and put up a lot of points. The thing that stood out the most for them, causing 4 turnovers that really changed the game. They had 9 points off of turnovers, which was huge. Directly 9 points, whether it was a scoop and score, and then they turned around and they blocked the extra point that turned into 2 points for them. Defensively, I think they have one of the best defensive linemen, not only in the Big 12 but in the country, with Stills. Seems like he's been there as long as I've been in college football. And so, once again, we're playing a veteran group. I also like 95, Jefferson. He played really well against Baylor. So I'm glad we're back at home. I'm glad that we're going to be playing in front of a homecoming crowd. It's going to be our guys yesterday, we were a little bit different. Normally it's a walkthrough on Sunday when we play on Saturday, but since we didn't, we treated it more like a fast Friday. We were helmet and spiders and moved around and hit some really good speeds. We had great energy yesterday, and so our guys are ready to get back to work and practice tomorrow and get ready for a really tough opponent. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Start out with Garrett on the third row.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned Donovan and Barron being able to go, but how are they health-wise? I know nobody's 100%, but where are they at right now going in this week?
Yesterday I thought Donovan was as healthy as he's been. Looked really good, felt great, had great energy. It was good to see Barron out there. We were kind of back and forth if we were going to let him, take a day, another day, off and watch, but he wanted to go. Threw the ball really well. We went 7-on-7, and it was full speed except for, contact, of course, since we weren't in pads. And, he looked good, threw the ball well, got out of the pocket and was able to move. So I really feel good about saying that, we're going to have both of them available, and they're in a really good frame of mind. I think it was for all three of them, the bye week was good, but I think for Donovan, it was probably watching him yesterday was probably the best of him, just having no contact whatsoever for 5 days. He came out and his arm was really, really live. So excited to see both of them out there.
And then you said we'll see both quarterbacks, but do you know who's going to start? Do you already have that sorted out? Are they going to compete, or how's that going to go?
No, we're going to, Barron took the majority yesterday with the ones. Donovan got some. It'll really be as the week goes, who has the best week. I think it's one of those deals. We've seen both of them play a lot. Of course, we haven't seen Tyler play a lot in this offense, but how we feel, who gives us the best chance against West Virginia. But I think with where we're at, I think you're definitely going to see both of them more in this game than what you've seen them of late.
Depth at receiver, could you just discuss that and what that's meant to the team this year?
Man, it's huge. I was talking to Kitley yesterday, and probably besides the Miles, we rotate so much that you really don't have like that one guy that maybe or two guys that some of the teams that we play have. But whenever you at the end of the year, when you put the guys together, they're going to equal out that. I mean, whenever you put what Bradley's done, that's another person, man, somebody looked good. He's been, for the last 3 weeks, we've had Loic in a yellow jersey, meaning that he can't be touched during practice. And yesterday he was back in his normal practice jersey, and he was fired up. His shoulder feels great. The big part of him was being able to get his arms up and catch balls above his head. And, he did that. It feels great. And so I think that adds another weapon that's going to be full speed. But the depth, it allows us to play fast. It allows us to play fresh. I think you saw the tempo of the year, but you saw the tempo we want to play at against OSU. I think you're going to see a lot of that on Saturday. We're going to try to tempo. It helps our offensive line, and it sometimes keeps personnel on the field, that you want to be on the field. So definitely it's going to be a big part of the game plan on Saturday and from here on out.
So when you look at Dante Stills, what makes him so special, and what kind of goes into that game plan to try to combat what he does so well?
The thing with him is he can play every position on the defensive line. He can play interior, he can play nose, and then they're starting to play more at end this year, and so he's a really good pass rusher. He's got a lot of power, and he's played a lot of snaps. I'm glad his twin brothers moved on. I hated playing both of them, and played both of them for a long time. But he's just a war daddy. He's a guy that loves the game. You could tell by the way he plays, and he's a very, very powerful guy. So, we got to know where he's at. We got to do a good job of protecting the quarterback, knowing where he's at. You can't overdo it because they got other guys that can pass rush, but he's definitely a guy that sets the tone for that defense. He's a guy that I think if you let him take over a game, he can really energize that defense and that team.
Coach, when you look in general at the West Virginia offense, how would you describe what they run on a base package, I guess is the way to describe it? Well,
with Coach Harrell, there's some similarities in what we do. Whenever you look back of the tree that he comes from, he's probably a lot more 11 personnel than what Coach Leach is. There's a little bit more run game in what he does, in the offense. And they did a great job last week running counter, had some huge plays against, I think, going into the game, the best run defense in the country, statistically. So, there's some similarities whenever it talks about pass concepts and everything like that. But Graham definitely, has a identity of his own. And, man, he's done a great job, with what he's done, at West Virginia. And, that offense and that quarterback, they score a lot of points against everybody. I mean, it hadn't been a deal where they haven't scored points, in the games that they've played.
You guys have had some struggles in the kicking game with punting and on field goals. What were you guys able to do last week to work on that specifically with those guys? Yeah,
so punting I felt a lot better against OSU. I think Max kind of got his head where it needs to be and what we're trying to do. I think definitely both myself, KP, Coach Perry, and Mac were probably trying to be too perfect, trying to do maybe a little bit too much with him. And so I think with him, just simplifying and turning him loose helped against OSU. in the kicking game, we took, we've missed 4 field goals that are makeable field goals. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and even yesterday, we kicked those 4 field goals with the team around, loud music, me calling timeout, switching the kickers back, just trying to create chaos. Our plan Wednesday is our last 3 periods of practice. We're going to go into the stadium. We haven't done that this year, and the reason I want to do that is because I want to create some more chaos for the kickers. And, they've responded. That's what's at the end of the day, or at the end of last week, it was really frustrating for me is like, whenever I'm talking to Wolf and to Gino, I'm like, none of these kicks, you kick a 51-yarder and then, and Trey goes, Coach, I haven't hit them well. And that's why they've been missed, And so I think creating that chaos, and they made last week, Tuesday and Wednesday, they made every kick from the ones that they missed. And it wasn't even close. So that's what's kind of frustrating. But hopefully creating that chaos and then that confidence, helps us definitely. Because if you go back, what does the game look like when it's 23-20 in the fourth quarter against K-State? What does it look like with even a bigger lead against Oklahoma State going into half? And so we got to be able to make those kicks, and they know that. And, the one thing that we do is there's nobody that we don't, including myself, call out for mistakes. And so I think the guys understand that, and it helps the buy-in and a closer team bond, and they know they got to do their job.
And I know you mentioned at the beginning with regards to some guys that may be coming back, but how beneficial was it to really get those guys some rest this past week during the bye week to get them ready for the second half of the season?
Yeah, it was huge, really, really big. I think it's just as much a mental break when you are banged up. When you're still being able to play the game, but you're banged up, I think that's a real strain on you mentally. And so I think that's why Donnie looked so good throwing the ball yesterday. Barron looked like he did against Oklahoma State, slinging it around. But I think just that mental break of, hey, I'm banged up and I get a chance not to get hit for 5 days makes a big difference.
Coach, I'm curious what kind of recruiter Coach Brown was when he came to your school and talked to your kids, and kind of the style and approach that he had.
Yeah, he did a great job. Neil's such a smart guy. He's got a really good personality. He did a really good job. And he was a guy that I always loved coming into because you could, get him on the board. He loves football. And he's been a big voice in college football. He represents the Big 12. In different committees, and so I think he does really a good job for not only recruiting but representing our conference.
I'm curious on substitutions. If you'd like to see something along the lines of the play clock stays at 25, but the game clock keeps rolling, so that it allows your offense to work in a normal tempo, so to speak.
I think there's rules out there for substitutions. I think there's coaches that need to realize that if they have a late sub, then they're not going to get the play off. And it's just the way it is. And I think it's definitely, watching the game that you're talking about with the TCU and OSU game, it's frustrating at the end of the game because when you late sub, you're not going to get the play off. If it's under probably 17, for sure 15 seconds, and you assume you're going to get the play off, it's not going to happen. And so I think not necessarily changing the play clock or anything like that, but, the officials definitely understanding that it's just not going to happen, especially in this conference. I think what you're fixed to start seeing is there's going to be a lot of conferences going to have to deal with it because the more tempo teams that for example, Tennessee, if they end up winning the SEC and they're a huge tempo team, then people are going to start trying to slow sub and slow the game down. And again, if you have a late substitution, you're just not going to get it off. It's just the way it is. And so I don't want to change it because I don't want to give the offense an advantage and the defensive advantage. I just think that we all need to understand, if Coach Kitley subs in 15 seconds, I'm not chewing anybody else's butt out except for Coach Kitley's. We got to get it right. It's not going to be the other way around. I'm not going to be questioning anybody else but us not getting it right.
Go to Zach, then Collier after that.
Hey, Coach, statistically this year, West Virginia hasn't been the team to really force too many turnovers. But then you see what they did against Baylor, force 4 turnovers and get the big upset. And on the flip side, Texas Tech obviously been turnovers been kind of an issue until this past game against OSU. I guess has that, as cliche as it may seem, is that kind of something that's been really stressed over this off week to really minimize those turnovers here at home?
Man, that's been if you ask me, the one thing coming into this year that you're like, what's been the biggest surprise? The biggest surprise for me is us not creating the turnovers. Us not, we had the opportunity to have between 2 and 4 interceptions against OSU, and, we don't catch the ball. That was kind of the difference of the TCU-OSU game. They did intercept the ball. They had the opportunity to intercept it, and their player intercepted the ball. We had the same opportunity, and we didn't come down with it. And so that's something that we really stressed. We stress it all the time with the take 3 stuff. And, it's nonstop. They get text every day. I think a lot of times what's kind of scary with West Virginia, when you get a game like that, it kind of gets you going. Turnovers happen in bunches. And so we've got to start, and I thought we did a good job of protecting the ball against OSU, and we were better. We were still -1. The defense has got to step up and start creating some of those turnovers, and that happens with, playing through the whistle, getting off blocks as far as recovering fumbles, but then also you got to catch the balls they throw to you, and we've got to do a better job of that, But it's always, it's a huge emphasis. We start practice off with it. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, we started practice off with it yesterday of our ball security and then our takeaway circuit. And we just got to keep at it. And it's going to turn at some point defensively, and then we just got to keep protecting the ball and putting our guys in good situations to make sure that we're throwing it to the right guys in the red and black.
But you mentioned JT Daniels. What specifically impresses you about what he's done so far this year?
Really good arm. He's not a guy. He can scramble. He had a big scramble against Baylor to keep the chains moving. Had a scramble against Kansas that got him down. I think inside the 5 during that game. But what he does, he moves in the pocket well, and then he's got a really good arm. He's got a good idea what he needs to do with the ball, and then, man, he's got more than 2, of course, but, man, he's got 2 receivers that can really go get the ball. 3 and 0, they're dudes. They play at a really high level. They're big receivers. I think 3 is Prathers. I might be saying that wrong, but man, he had a huge game and caught some really big balls against Baylor Thursday night, and so we got to know where those guys are, and we got to do a good job. But we got to have some pressure on him. We got to move him off his spot and hopefully hurry some throws.
A guy like Graham, who obviously played the position and played it pretty well here at Texas Tech in JT's development.
Yeah, I think it's big, whenever you have a guy like Graham that, played at such a high level. The thing more than anything of playing the position, he's a coach's kid, and he's a coach's kid of one of the greatest high school coaches, I think, in the nation, that has a fingerprint on a lot of stuff that people were doing, and he was doing it Sam Harrell was doing it long before anybody else was. So I think growing up like that, I still, I know Graham very well. Sam's one of my mentors. I still remember Graham, whenever he's in middle school and he's throwing, fade balls into a bucket whenever we'd come over and play 7-on-7 against Dennis. His 8th grade year, he won our 7-on-7 tournament with the varsity football team, and he's in 8th grade and he's the quarterback. And so, he's just got a great understanding for the game and does a really good job. Has a really good demeanor, I think, about calling the game. Doesn't get too high or too low, and just he's been a guy. He did it at North Texas, did it at USC, and he's doing it at West Virginia. That was a really big pickup for Coach Brown, getting him as the OC.
Go down to Don.
Hey, Joey, on Tyler, I think you said last week maybe that he's seeing the doctors on Monday today.
Yep.
What time are y'all going to find out something?
Well, his will be, so the doctors have said, let's go through the week. Let's see how he throws. He's going to be in practice. He will not get as much. He won't get any with the ones. He'll get some with the twos. He's going to get a lot of scout team. They'll, just because we'll be able to put more pressure on him. Of course, we're not going to hit him, but kind of to see where he's at. And then that will tell us if he can play on Saturday. He's a guy that he doesn't really need the same amount of reps because he's older with the ones and twos to be able to play. If he's able to, then he'll be available. What will be really big for us is having him available and then getting him ready to go against Baylor. But the doctors feel good. If he looks good on Tuesday and Wednesday moving around his pads, and he'll be available for Saturday.
And you said at the top, you said that Barron went majority of snaps with the ones yesterday, and Donovan got some. Just to clarify, on what basis did Barron get the majority of the reps?
Not just the last game, and really it kind of started off of like seeing where Donovan was with his shoulder, and he said he felt good, but we started off with Barron with more. That really kind of because he threw the ball so well with the twos, it gave us an idea of like, hey, we want to get some ones also, just because he feels so much better with his shoulder. He had a really sore shoulder, throwing shoulder with his AC sprain, and he looked 100%. And what was good was kind of seeing his body language. He felt 100%. It was almost like the weight of the world was off of him a little bit of, trying to push through some pain and everything throwing the ball. So it was good to see him out there do that.
And earlier you mentioned on the punting game, you said you tried to simplify some things for Austin. Can you elaborate on that? Was it directional kicking related stuff?
It is. With him, because he is so good, we came into this season and we were doing a lot of directional kicking, a lot of things. Almost down to a few yards of where we wanted it to be. And I think he'll be the first one to tell you, man, he was trying to be too perfect. And I understand if you're trying to put it inside the 20-yard line, you got to be more perfect. But if it's a deal, he and I kind of talked about. I said, hey, have you ever seen John Daly hit a golf ball? He was like, yeah. And I said, just grip it and rip it. Like, quit trying to be perfect. Coach Perry said the same thing. And because that's one thing he's got such a strong leg. We don't want to take that away from what he can do. He's got great hang time, and he's a real weapon. And I think we were definitely trying to use that, but we were trying to be too perfect of where we were directionally kicking it. And, that cost him some, it cost us some. So I think you saw a better mindset against Oklahoma State, and you definitely will against West Virginia.
And one more on special teams. Y'all have had a couple instances where you've had punts fielded like 5-yard line or so. What is your preference on where it's too deep to field a punt? Do you?
Oh yeah, don't make that choice. I think I said it last week, but and that's the entire team. We made some choices that that's not a choice to make. That should not be a fielded punt. When you go out on the field and you know that, and whether the moment or whatever you see, you do it. That's something that we don't want to do. We want to put our heels anywhere from the 8 to 10-yard line, and if it goes over our head, then we want to take the chance that ball is going to go in the end zone. Because whether it's at the 2-yard line or the 5-yard line, you're still in a bad situation for your offense, and we don't want to put our guys there. So we got to make the choices and the decisions. We got to do a better job, with that.
Any final questions? All right. Thanks, Coach.
Great to see y'all. Glad to be back.
When we're ready, Stan will start us off to your left.
So after seemingly taking on a mobile quarterback pretty much every week up until this week in JT Daniels, how much does the game plan change, if any, taking on somebody who's maybe a pure pocket passer?
I mean, it changes a little bit. You don't have to worry about, a lot of the quarterback design run game. Although they've got 6 who comes in, then they give you that. So every week you better have a plan for it, because whether it's the starter and JT or 6 coming in, they have the capability of having a mobile quarterback. Yeah. He does a good job of moving in the pocket, mostly going to stay in it and scramble to look to, keep his eyes downfield and make a throw. But he's moved the ball a little bit with his legs.
Who wants to follow that?
With that kind of quarterback that's looking to throw, does that give an advantage to your pass rushers, knowing that he's not looking to run, so they can force the issue in the pocket and out of the pocket?
Well, I think anytime you're dealing with a mobile quarterback, it becomes a concern for your guys. But they've done a nice job protecting JT. The teams that have pressured him, I think, have thrown him off a little bit. We've got to mix our pressures, but they've got some threats on the outside in particular that one-on-one situations win their share of 50-50 balls, or more than their share of 50-50 balls. So you got to be concerned with that and mix your pressures along with getting good pressure out of our 4-down front, and hopefully we'll be able to do that on Saturday.
What were some of the things that you guys were able to focus on last week during the bye week that maybe didn't get the attention up until then because you were doing so much game prep?
We went back to fundamentals last week. Just blocking, getting off blocks, adjusting to different formations that can give you problems, being able to communicate within different packages of how we adjust to certain things, and just going back to our core stuff. And I think having 6 games in, our guys getting a chance to see the cut-ups of what we did well and things that we didn't do well. I think it was really good for our guys.
We'll go next to David, followed by Justin.
Coach, did you have a chance, was JT healthy whenever he was at USC and you were at Cal? Did you have a chance to go up against him?
His freshman year, we did. He had just got there. He was a really highly touted quarterback, and it was before he got hurt and transferred. But he was a guy that, could make all the throws and got the ball out quick.
Seen him improve. I mean, I know it's freshman to where he is now, but what improvements has he made?
Well, I think he's got a much better understanding of what they want to do. Being back with the same system with Coach Harrell, I think has helped him. He looks very, very confident in the pocket, where as a freshman, as most freshmen, the game's really fast. So he's playing with a lot of poise, a lot of confidence, it looks to be. And they're averaging close to 40 points, and they're really, really balanced, and they're causing a lot of problems for people.
Coach, you mentioned a couple of the wide receivers for West Virginia. What kind of problems or challenges that face your defensive backs?
Well, Zero, for them, he's a big guy. Both their outside receivers are big, long players. They're vertical threats. They can use their body on 50-50 throws. And, I like our matchups with our 2 corners. I think they've been doing a pretty good job on, particularly on vertical shots. We've taken a lot of them. But that's a concern, because you see him go up and make plays on just about everybody. I think, JT does a really nice job of throwing the ball over underneath coverage, and They got guys that can go up, with their length and their jumping ability to go up and get it. So that's a concern. They do a really nice job in their screen game, and it's something we've worked on during our bye week because we didn't fit some screens as well as we should have. But between the two of those, it's a concern. You want to rush the passer, then they're getting the ball out on screens and draws, and if you don't get to the quarterback, the shots are coming.
Coach McGuire mentioned it with turnovers being kind of not being created lately. What's something that you've been trying to teach your guys? And
it's something we work daily. We talk about the 4 Ps, and one of them is preparation and in understanding our defense so we can play fast, but understanding who we're playing in preparation. It's purpose. It's going on out there, not trying to just make a tackle, but to go after the football consciously. When you pressure the quarterback and get there, going after the ball. We've had some opportunities where we've had some interceptions that were, in my mind, catchable balls. We got our hands on it. We got to complete those. And so just putting our guys in those situations more and more. We start every practice with takeaway circuit and just having that consciousness of going after the ball, attacking the ball all the time has got to be part of our DNA. And we're getting closer. We just got to make it more consistent. And then eventually when those balls are on the ground, we got to have greater population so that we get the bounces. We got one out, against Kansas State, and we didn't get it because we didn't have enough guys there, and they did. So it's a, kind of combination of all that together.
As Tyler Owens has been playing more, what does he bring to the defense and add to the secondary?
Well, he's a long guy that runs really, really well. I think the lack of experience relative to the other safeties is what separated him from them. But as he's playing more, he's playing with more confidence. And, his length and speed really, can make up for some things. So it's good to see him. He was making a lot of plays on special teams and kind of earned the right to earn more reps. And I thought he played, initially he was a little tentative last time we played, but as the game went on, he gained more confidence and made plays.
Any other questions for Coach? Go to Don and then Chuck.
I'm just curious about Adrian Fry and if we'll see him more this week.
Yeah, he practiced last week. He was at practice yesterday. As he continues to get better, we're hoping to get him in this week and have him cleared for this week. He was cleared for last time we were out, but in talking with him, he wasn't quite at where he thought he should be to compete at the level we needed him to compete at. So hopefully, with him practicing more and getting more confidence, he'll get there.
I'm sure you saw this, but Devonte Adams went into the Fresno State Hall of Fame. And just curious if you saw that potential or if he's gone.
Yeah, no, Devonte is a special guy. And he's got a lot of God-given talent, but that guy worked as hard as anybody on our team. And so to see him get the accolades that he's gotten doesn't surprise me at all. He's a really outstanding person as well as being an outstanding player. And when we had him and Derek Carr, they were really hard guys for anybody to try to defend. And it wasn't just because they were talented. They outworked everybody. And like one pushed the other one all the time. So it was fun to see them compete together. And now that they're back together, I think that chemistry is going to come back. And, last week was a special weekend, for Devonte and his family. And it was an honor that he very much deserved.
Coach, I was curious your thoughts on your development of the depth guys in the front seven, because obviously you're doing a lot of rotation and have a lot of second unit guys playing a bunch of key snaps. It seems like. How have you felt about Tyreek Matthews and Jacob Rodriguez and your depth guys on the front four? Yeah,
I think Tyreek and Jake are doing a really nice job. The more we're putting them out, the more confidence they're playing with. And both of them bring some things to the table. And so, I think the more they play, the fresher we can be, with Krishan, and with Kosai. If you can play with 4 guys there, it really helps you. We played 90 whatever snaps the other day. If you got to play all 90 of them, that's a tough order. But if you can, maybe get 20 or 30 out of those other guys, now it's much more reasonable. You can be fresher in the fourth quarter. Same thing up front. Miles Cole's coming on. Vidal's, I think, done a nice job for us. And I'm trying to think who else we got there. Yeah, Joseph has really come on up front. So, to see him come on has been a real nice plus for us because he's got a bright future ahead of him. And, we got to get Tyree out of there at times, and he's done a nice job being able to spell him. All right.
Coach, you're facing another experienced D-line this week. Seems like a recurring theme in this conference. What's that been like preparing for this week?
Yeah, the good thing is, kind of like you said, it's been a weekly occurrence. Every week where we're facing really good defensive fronts, and so I think we're going to continue to get better. I thought we made a lot of strides against Oklahoma State. Probably the most experienced defensive line in the country as far as age-wise and amount of snaps played. And I thought our guys really stepped up and did a good job against them. So just continuing to stay the course and get better, and clearly, play calling and some of that stuff helps those guys in certain scenarios too. So just continue to do both of those things.
And what stands out to you about their defense scheme-wise this week?
Yeah, they're very multiple. Probably going to be the most multiple defense we've seen this year. He really mixes it up, does a great job. I mean, they're going to be in every front you can possibly think of. Odd, stack, bear, nickel, even. I mean, the whole 9 yards there. And the same thing in the back end. They don't have a lot of tendencies. I think that's one thing they try to do is they try to really confuse the quarterback and make him make bad decisions into bad coverages and some of those things. So they're all over the place, very multiple. So, again, it's going to be really paramount for our offensive line to make sure we're communicating and getting the point right, and for the quarterback to see the coverages pre-snap and attack that way.
Seems like you like to run wide receiver screens pretty often. I guess in practice, how much emphasis do you put on your receivers, blocking wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge thing, the old saying, no block, no rock, all that. We try to work that as much as possible. You saw it a little bit more against Oklahoma State because I felt like that was an advantage we could take on those guys last week, and some stuff like that. So, but we work it pretty much every day, especially Tuesdays and Wednesdays when we're full pads and we're thudding up and all that stuff. You don't see it as much on Thursdays and Fridays just because we're not in full pads, but you see it a lot during the week on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
And Coach McGuire kind of said Miles Price might be available on Saturday. Has he practiced, or how's he looking so far?
He's done some walkthrough stuff. He hadn't done the full speed stuff yet, so we're still looking to hopefully get him back this weekend because, as y'all know, he's a game changer for us. Field on the play, but also just the mentality and the leadership he brings to that room. So hoping to get him back this weekend.
Coach McGuire talked about how you're still waiting to get Shuck back officially cleared for the game, but he's able to practice. Mm-hmm. In an ideal situation, obviously you'd want your number one quarterback taking all the first-team reps in a week. But realistically, for each one of the three guys, what percentage of those first-team reps do they need to have for you to feel comfortable as their starting quarterback this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, again, on who you play and what's the game plan like. Tyler's a little bit more seasoned, and so, a guy like him probably doesn't need as many reps. As Baron Morton would need, just a younger, just a freshman out there. He's going to need to see more, and he's going to need more reps. But yeah, percentage-wise, I don't know if I can give you a great answer there. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that they're comfortable with the game plan at the end of the day. So whatever that is, that we feel comfortable, running out there on Saturday, and that we can execute that game plan. That's really what matters the most.
Being cleared to play is different than being able to play with regards to what you need him to do. What are some of the things, specifically talking about Shuck, that you would need him to be able to do that is beyond just being cleared before you'd be wanting to have him be the starter?
Yeah, I mean, number one, protect himself. I want to make sure he's able to protect himself back there. I'm going to want to get him in the pocket with fast speed rush coming at him and see how he handles that in the pocket. But, I mean, he's been out there throwing, and he got to do 7-on-7 this week, and I think his first day out there, he got 10 reps. I think he went 9 for 10. He looks good. So positive and hopeful about his, everything goes well this week and we see where he's at. But definitely, I got to see him feel comfortable out there more than anything. And I think he will, just again, being a seasoned guy. But just got to make sure he feels comfortable in the pocket back there, because no matter who you play, whatever week, you're going to take a shot, at least one or two. So I think that's going to be probably the biggest thing for him is honestly just getting hit once. I think will be probably good for him a little bit, to be honest with you, because then he can kind of move past that and move on. So.
Situational, going with reps. Coach said that Barron had got the majority of them so far. As far as Donovan goes, is that just because he's working back? And to follow up on that, how is he looking?
Yeah, so, last week we split the reps pretty evenly last week. We only really practiced Tuesday and Wednesday, and it was it wasn't necessarily geared as much towards West Virginia as it was to just really just get going and kind of go back to some of the base stuff. We did a lot of stuff in the run game and some stuff like that too. And then Tyler, again, like I said, was sprinkled into some 7-on-7 as well. But yeah, yesterday was really our West Virginia number one, if you will, practice-wise, and Barron went out there with the ones. And we'll see kind of how it all looks. 2 weeks ago too, it was the same thing. Donovan went with the ones all day on Tuesday, and I just didn't feel like physically he was prepared to go to give our football team the best chance. And I called him in, and we had a great conversation. And he, as y'all saw, he was in the game and played some snaps, and he's ready to go. And so we're going to kind of do the same plan here this week with Barron kind of starting with the ones and seeing how we feel going that way.
You talked about the defensive line a minute ago, but specifically Stills and what makes him so disruptive.
Man, he's big, physical, strong, has a motor. He's played a lot of football. That's a big thing that people don't always take into account. He's seen a lot, and so he's, again, seasoned guy. I feel like he's been there forever, played a lot of football. He's one of the top guys in the country. So, but just all those things, physicality, size, strength, all that, it makes him just a hard guy to block, and he's really good in pass rushing as well.
All right, we have Don and Zach and then Jared.
To Zach, when all quarterbacks have a reasonable level of health, then that's not an issue. You have all three available. Who's number one in your eyes and your mind?
I'll be honest with you, I haven't thought about that one bit, just because I got to focus on where we're at right now. And so, again, that's going to come down to how we feel, who can give us the best chance to win. And again, I've got to really get out there and feel that all three of those guys are healthy. That's a big task that I'm going to have to figure out when that time comes. Because, again, we've got three guys that we've all seen this year that can win football games. And so that's going to be something, a road that I got to cross, hopefully sooner than later. So we'll see.
X-White, how have you felt about what he's given you here in the last few weeks, his development?
Yeah, he's done a really good job, stepping in that role that Miles had. Made some really big catches. Against Kansas State, he played really, really well. Last week, the ball went a little bit more outside than it did inside, but he caught the big touchdown down there on the goal line area for us. And man, he's kind of a jack of all trades again. He can do a lot of different stuff for you. Very proud of him and the progress he's come, with really just playing running back up until this year and really stepping into that receiver role. He's done a good job.
Coach, I know Corey Aiken was someone that we're kind of waiting on, and I know the expectation was to hopefully see him back this week. How's he progressing?
Yeah, he's looking good. Again, just a true freshman that hadn't gotten out there yet, hadn't played. But unless something crazy happens, and we're knock on wood here with him, but hopefully you see him Saturday as well. He's looked really, really good. He got back full speed last week and did those 2 practices for us. Again, he's done a lot of things right. But again, we've got to get him out there when the real bullets are flying and see how he responds. But he's done a good job, and right now he looks healthy. So hopefully we can keep him healthy for the next 4 or 5 days and get him to Saturday.
Hey, Coach, a couple weeks ago, you mentioned the main focus with Barron was his mental approach and developing that. Mm-hmm. Of course, he got thrown out there against Oklahoma State and made some big plays. But how did he manage the game? How did he run the offense and do what you want?
He did some really good stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that you would see from a redshirt freshman starting his first game in that environment against a team of their caliber. But definitely proud of him, man. I mean, he's, with what you get with Barron Morton's a gunslinger, and his biggest quality is he can throw the football. And so we knew going into that game that I was going to put the ball in his hands, whether it was freshman, senior, whatever he was. I was going to put the ball in his hands and let him throw it around. Because, again, I try to do everything that I can to play into my players' strengths, and that's his deal, getting the ball out quick, throwing the long ball. And then clearly people don't realize how good in the pocket he is too, in movement-wise. But there's definitely some stuff mentally, some stuff that they did defensively that he missed a little bit. But again, I think that's kind of part of the maturity level that's going to continue to come with him. And I think sitting in there last Sunday, meeting with him and talking about some of the things we missed, I think it was glaring to him, and he sees it. And I think the game's just going to continue the more he plays, the game's going to slow down, and you're going to see him just skyrocket mentally to where I know he's going to go.
I remember Kingsbury, and I'm not comparing Mahomes and Barron in terms of ability and all, but just in terms of being a gunslinger. I remember Kingsbury saying sometimes they'll just give him the ball and say, go be you. Is there any part of that with Barron?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, clearly Pat's a different guy. He's the best in the world at what he does. But, as far as just true arm talent and ability there, Barron's right underneath him, I'd say. Barron's got some weird arm slots and does some weird stuff with his hip mobility and some of that stuff that I laugh at, and we're trying to fix some of it as well. It's going to make him even better at the position. But no, definitely. Part of that, he does kind of have that gamer mentality, which I love, but at the same time I struggle with because I'm a guy that likes to see it produced through the week as well. And he had a phenomenal week of practice, that week leading up to Oklahoma State. And again, I think you're just going to continue to see him flourish in this system. The more opportunities he gets, the more reps he gets, and the more defense you see. That's the biggest thing. Last spring and last fall, he really didn't get that many reps from what I've understood from him. And then now you come here and we split the reps all spring, all fall, but you're seeing one defense, and that's our defense every day. And so then you start to see something different, and that's where he'll make the biggest leaps moving forward. Is the more defenses he sees, the game will start to slow down for him, and he'll start being able to attack what he sees a little bit more.
How's the depth and versatility of this receiving core help you as a play caller?
Yeah, it's been great. We've got a bunch of guys. We don't have one guy that's got 50 catches and 800, 900 yards quite yet. But, I think I heard Coach McGuire mention it. We talked about it yesterday. When you look at kind of our 1-2 punch at each position across the board, you're going to see those guys, that those numbers are going to equal out to be, one of the top number one guys in the country, if you will. We just want to make sure we're trying to keep our guys fresh too. I don't really know where we're at snap count in the country, but we've got to be up there. We played a lot of snaps. So when you're playing a lot of snaps, you want to keep your guys fresh and wear down the other side. And so we've got a really great depth at that position. And so just trying to get all those guys and keep those guys fresh has been really good for us.
I know you had a chance to watch Graham, obviously, as a player. Have you guys talked football as coordinators?
Not really as coordinators as much, talking X's and O's, but him and I know each other well, and we've seen each other on the camp circuit in the summers, recruiting and doing quarterback drills together. And I actually ran into him this spring out in Flower Mound. We were both watching a player there at practice and ran into him, and he's a great guy, and clearly he's done a lot for this university. He's one of the best ever to play here. Got nothing but respect for him, as far as the coach goes as well. His resume speaks for itself with what he did at North Texas and then USC, and then now they're really successful and doing great things at West V. So, great guy, and again, we haven't sat down and talked ball, but I definitely respect what he's doing as a coach and clearly what he did here as a player as well.
Coach, just curious, have you talked to Bailey since last night's win?
I have, yeah. We were able to chat a little bit yesterday after the game. Clearly fired up for him, man. He's earned everything that he's got, and I hope that the Patriots see it the same way and keep letting him roll. I think Mac's back this week, but they need to let the Zappy train keep trucking for sure, because he's different for sure. So yeah, proud of him.
Any last questions? We'll finish with Don over here.
How did y'all find him, so to speak, and who on the HBU staff discovered him, and what was the recruitment like?
So he was actually there before I got there. He had been recruited by the previous quarterback coach. Charlie Reeve was his name, and he was actually a Victoria native. And it was kind of, just hearing the story firsthand from Bailey. He had no offers until January. of his, and he was actually playing high school basketball and had no offers up to that point. I don't want to quote this, but I want to say they had maybe missed on their first or second guy HBU had at quarterback, and so Bailey was kind of the next guy in line. They ended up offering him just a few days before signing day, from what I recall, and he signed immediately his only D1 offer. And then he played a little bit that freshman year. I want to say he started actually 9 of the 11, I believe. Had a decent year as a freshman, and then I took over right after his freshman year and was with him for 4 years after that.
All right, we'll end it right there. Thank you.
Thanks. See y'all.